the distinction between social factors and the real world factors meant? Is it meant as a sharp distinction? Because it's strange, right?
Yeah. Maybe I didn't pick the best terms, but what is intended is a sharp distinction. The social factors have to do with the interaction of people in communities. Okay. The real world factors have to do with the essence of things. Okay, so what I mean by real world factors is what I just mentioned in case of Putnam. The essence of things determines what the word refers to. So if you take the word Aristotle, say, what it really refers to is the essential nature of the thing. Aristotle. We may be wrong in all our beliefs.
What happened to the broom?
With room? Broom. Well, that's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem that arises with artifacts. See, in fact, Kripke, in his early discussion of this in Naming Necessity, he does discuss artifacts. He discusses a table, I think, and he says, if this thing is a table, it is necessarily a table. That is, it's the essence of this thing to be a table. It's an essential feature of it that it is a table. And he does say that. I think it's totally wrong. But it sort of comes out of his way of looking at things. So artifacts also have an essence. In my opinion, Aristotle had a better idea there, namely that having a certain function is a factor that enters into the meaning of things, or the nature of things, as he put it. Having a certain function enters into the nature of things. Like being a table is one of the functions of this thing, and that enters into its nature. Now, if we take that view and we divorce it from the metaphysics, which doesn't make any sense, and we make it epistemological, we take the whole Aristotelian view and transfer it up to the mind. So instead of the world being divided into these various qualities and so on, we say, well, that's what our minds are like, and our minds impose that structure on the world. Then it all quickly makes sense. It's perfectly true, I think, that we characterize objects in terms of their constitution, their function, and so on and so forth. But that tells us nothing about the essence of things. I mean, this thing is what it is. If we happen to use it for a table, it's a table. Somebody else uses it as a bed, it's a bed. Somebody else uses it as a key, it's a key. If some Martian divides things into the world on the basis of whether they're nailed to the floor or not, that's his categorization. If it's nailed to the floor, it goes into one category. If it's not nailed to the floor, it goes to another category. Then for the Martian, this is essentially something not nailed to the floor and accidentally a table. And if it was nailed to the floor, it would shift essences. But of course, what the thing is doesn't depend on whether I'm thinking about it or the Martian's thinking about it.
And even the essence may change because of social factors.
Well, not the, they would, so the externalists would claim, but I don't think so.
No,
it seems,
but
according to that view, yeah, the essence would change on the basis of social factors. In fact, this has led to contemporary philosophical essentialism, which is a big field that came out of this, is trying to find the essential nature of things. And in my opinion, it's constantly leading to paradox, like the idea that this really is a table, not a thing not nailed to the floor, because I'm looking at it, not a Martian. How can that affect what this is? Or take a case from one of the most recent articles I've seen, at least, in the journal Philosophy by Joseph Almog, who's a very good young philosopher. And it's about a journal Philosophy. It's a couple of months ago. It's about essentialism, which is a big topic. And he starts off by taking as an example some mountain. I forget what it was. So whatever the mountain is, he picked a real one. And he wants to sort of tease out your intuitions about this and then, draw some big philosophical conclusions. And he he argues, of course, that that mountain is essentially a mountain. It couldn't be anything else and still be the same thing. It couldn't be anything other than a mountain and still be the same thing. So I don't know about your intuitions, but mine are quite different. So here's this object, you know, on the Earth's surface. And he says that thing, that very thing, must be a mountain, because it's of necessity it is a mountain. It sort of follows from the general framework. At least my intuition is that if the water level rises up to this point, then this thing is an island. You know, it's not a mountain. And it's still the same thing. You know, in fact, islands are mountains. It's just that most of them is underwater. You know, or if you dump Earth around this thing up to, say, you know, a millimeter away or something less than is perceptible, but you leave a little minuscule space in there below the level of perception, then you haven't changed the thing, at least in my intuition. It's the same thing it was before, but now it's part of a plateau. And so on for a million other things. I mean, I don't have any of those intuitions. My intuitions are quite different. So at least if we're doing folk psychology, which is what we're supposed to be doing, it just seems to me people are being radically misled. And there's nothing here about the essence of things. I mean, it's what it is. If I call it a mountain, it's because of its relationships for me between, you know, its height and some other low thing. But that doesn't make it essentially a mountain. That's a way of viewing the world. There's a way of viewing the world which comes out of the human mind, which makes that thing now a mountain, but doesn't tell you anything about its essence. In fact, I don't think there are no essences. Things are just what they are. You know? I mean, every property is as essential as every other property, or as accidental as every other property. The talk about essences, I think, is a mistake that comes from taking our mental categories and introducing them into the world. And they're not in the world, they're in our minds, they're in our ways of conceiving the world. I think, in fact, you know, if you take Aristotle's whole corpus and you rephrase it from metaphysical to epistemological, it makes a lot of sense. You know, the levels of reality and all this kind of stuff. If you forget the idea that those are the constituents of nature, and if you say eliminate the idea that science proceeds by moving up through the parts of nature, you know, and you say, well, look, that's the way our minds work when we look at things, it makes a fair amount of sense.
The vision of essence would be very much Wittgenstein, wouldn't it?
Kind of, yeah. I would say, well, except that Wittgenstein, it's a little, not quite, I think, because Wittgenstein always says he's stopping before explanation. He doesn't want to give an explanation of anything. He just wants to give enough of a description, an accurate enough description, so that you don't enter into error. And this is going beyond into explanation. Maybe, you know, right or wrong.
I mean, when he says that the essence lies in language.
Yeah, I think it lies in thought, actually. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's consistent, at least.